JBH Boutique Care offers you a unique exclusive membership in our nationwide concierge medical services network. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Judine Bontemps-Hill. I'm double board certified in family and obesity medicine. We pair exclusive personalized care with accessibility and convenience. A better way for you to receive immediate quality medical care. Whether at our main Orlando, Florida office, traveling across the U.S. or visiting the States, we bring you the best medical care without waiting for an appointment. Become a member today by calling 407-234-5282 or visit us online at jbhmed1.com. JBH Boutique Care is proud to sponsor Sounds of the Diaspora, music and conversations with artists and host Dion Parson, every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Source TV Radio Network, WTSN, Washington, D.C.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Sounds of the Diaspora, artist to artist, a conversation with yours truly, Dion Parson. It brings me great pleasure tonight to have this wonderful and amazing musician on the show. He's earned critical acclaim both nationally and internationally, and he's a trumpeter, he's a composer, arranger, and an author, amongst some of his many, many credits and talent that he presents. Please join me in welcoming to the show, Mr. Jeremy Pelt.
How are you?
I'm good, Jeremy. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. And before we start, I don't want to hijack your show or anything like this, but I'm going to say this right off the top, all right? You know, I've always, for all the listeners out there right now, I'm truly honored to be here talking with my big brother, Dion Parson. We were just talking before we went live about the recording that I appeared on your recording on the 21st Century Band. And I appreciated the fact that you gave me a shot when I was very young and I moved to town, and that always stuck with me. And I never forget that. And
wow.
And I just wanted to say that on record. So thank you.
No, man, thank you. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you making a recording back then, and we've performed many times since then. Not only with my band, but in so many other situations with Elio Villafranca and other folks, man. And you made your name in New York. You carved your niche, and you're doing great things, man. So it's a pleasure and an honor to for you to call me your big brother, but to know you, man, and watch you develop and to be part of that process and to just create music with you. So kudos to you, man, on the great things that you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I remember when we were neighbors on the same block.
Right.
actually twice, because when we were living uptown, in 157th and Manhattan Avenue, we were like a block apart. Yeah. And then I moved from up there, and I moved to 117 in Lenox, and then shortly after that, you moved on the same block, like maybe like 4 or 5 houses down the street.
I followed you. Where you going? No, I'm going there too.
Wow, look at that. I didn't even look at it that way, man. I was just happy to be in great company, man. So
it was just fortuitous. It was fortuitous. Yeah. I think you had a family member that owned the property on that block, and
yes,
then I had a family member that owned property right across the street from your family member.
Yeah. And we were both musicians coming up, trying to find our way and figure out stuff, doing our thing, and our families was like, "Hey, come on, we got you." It was like one of the best things for me was my cousin, that owned that building. He's like, "D, man, just go on the road, man. Just enjoy life. I got you." So I never worried, man. I just, and that's when a lot of things blossom for me, and I watch you do the same, even with your family. I watch your kids born and all that stuff. We were on that same block during that time.
It's crazy, right? Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And, we stayed in touch all of these years and been through a lot, with our good friend. We was just talking about Dwayne Burno, and his son is going to college now. Wow, yeah, Quinn. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, man, time flies, man. So time flies when you're having fun, So, well, Jeremy, man, you're on the show, and I know our audience all around the world is like, okay, who's this Jeremy Pelt? You guys are here, talking to each other and reminiscing, but so who's Jeremy Pelt, and how did you get into this music? Why did you choose this? Yeah,
I think it chose me.
yeah, I hear you.
And I mean, that sounds very cliche, right? Like every artist says that, like it chose me. But I mean, they say it for a reason, and I say it for a reason because it did.
Right.
Before that, when I first started playing, I was very much into classical music, and I thought that was the European classical music. And I thought that was the route that I was going to take. And
Okay.
not only was I in the trumpet, but I was in the conducting too. So I
Okay.
was really into it. And I didn't really discover jazz until, further into my exploration and into playing. And as soon as that happened, which was, when I was 15 years old, then European classical music, it didn't disappear. It wasn't like, okay, I'm done with you, but it was just like now the forefront was jazz.
Right.
And and that's what I mean by it chose me, because it was just like, because sometimes it gets to people and you're like, oh yeah, this is something that I could dig, but still for other people it's like, okay, now this presents itself as a calling.
Right.
And that's what happened with me. It was just like, okay, this simply is what it is. And if you talk to my mother, or my high school teacher, who, actually I don't think is alive anymore, but, certainly my mother, she'll tell you that it was just like, it was night and day. It was just like, okay, as soon as I heard it, I was, all my little allowance money and everything was going towards getting CDs and tapes. And she had a bunch of friends that was into jazz, and they heard that I got into jazz, and they started giving me CDs from their collection. My aunt, her older sister, June Kim, was huge. My mother had two older sisters, June and Audrey, and they were both huge into jazz, and they were on the scene since the 50s.
Okay.
But especially my aunt June was like very much like, she was the aunt that was not only into like, the classics, but she was into all the younger cats too. So she was the one giving me to like Roy Hargrove and Terrence and all the cats, and sending me like newspaper clippings, newspaper clippings. That it's funny to even talk about that in 2024, right? But I'm getting
right. Before internet, you put it clippings in the mail, and
all these clippings from like, Downbeat and Jet magazine and everything. So I mean that was very influential for me.
Yeah. And that's beautiful, man. You mentioned CDs and tapes, but I know one of your biggest passions, and I've witnessed it myself, and I've seen you, post it, is that you're avid, in-depth, passionate record collector.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I've always been into that. But it's one of those things. It's like, if you follow me on Instagram, which is Jeremy Pelt the Griot, you'll see now that I treasure my record collection. And so I was always collecting CDs and tapes, because that was the major thing back when I was in my formative years. And because everybody had been getting rid of vinyls, if you can imagine, at that point, everybody's like, okay, let me get rid of these things. They were getting rid of it, and only the smart ones really kept them. And when I first moved to, and actually, I should say this, before I moved to New York. I did have a little record player in Boston when I was in college, and there was a record store called Looney Tunes that was that I would go and get records from. And I didn't know what I was getting. I would just pick up records. So I moved to town with a little record collection.
Okay.
I didn't think nothing of it because CDs was the dominant thing, and tapes. This is even before MP3s, right? And then I would go over. I quickly made friends with Peter Washington, who's one of my dearest friends, and Billy Drummond and all those cats who are huge audiophiles. And I would go over to Peter's house because he lived closest to me, and he'd be like, all right, sit right here. He was like a huge audio. He would sit in this seat right here in this spot. And he had his speakers and his system, and he would blast it. And it would be like you could hear everything, right? And
Wow.
I'm like, wow. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, that's cool. Because I'm not thinking in terms of, from a sonic thing. I was always a very voracious listener, and that included everything that I was, everything that I was listening to, I listened to very closely and very meticulously. So I was always very good at listening. But I would listen to him, and he was like, yeah, man, you got to get you one of these sound systems. And at that point, I was like, listen, man, I ain't got no money to I don't even know if I'm going to make it next month. So it took me like a good, I'll be honest, because we go from, single life to, now I'm married and I've got kids. So now I definitely can't afford no sound system. Then I get divorced and then I'm moving back into town, still can't afford it. Then I have another child and I'm with, and we, moving in and we don't have no space for, so it took me like, and then, after that, I moved into my own space. It took me, I would say, about a good 23 years before I actually got a record player and like a sound system, because that was the first decision I made after I moved into my own spot. After 20 years, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it now. And I did it. And it just grew. And if you follow it, like I said, if you follow my Instagram account, you could see where like there was like my little, I just moved into my apartment. I have this little, cubby where there's like 3 records that I got off Amazon, like Kinda Blue and Giant Steps and Blue Train, right? You know what I mean? Three LPs. And now you look at it now and it's like, the article that I did on the New York Times, that's not even the whole record collection. Now I've got over 1,600.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. It's like you collect where you can. You travel. I remember going to Japan, and day off, you travel to the record spot that everybody's talking about. And you grab stuff. But over there, they're really like CDs. But yeah, developing your own record collection that's huge these days, man.
Yeah.
I'm glad I kept mine. A friend of mine was leaving college, and he gave me like about 75 records. And I took him. He was like, hey, man, you should have these because I know you're into music. And I wasn't really paying attention to it, but I kept them. And it wasn't until like my son was born that I actually kind of like, because I'm home and I'm like going through them and I got a record player and I was like, wow. And there were some gems, man, like Freddie Hubbard, some Earl Clues, some Miles, some Dexter, some Wayne, like stuff that, it was the right stuff.
Right.
So,
look, like a couple months ago, I'm gonna tell you something that's funny. Is a couple months ago, I was on the road someplace. I was in Europe, and it was in the spring. And Warren Wolf, the great vibraphone player, he has he's not into LPs, and I get not everybody's into LPs, but he had so he had gotten an email from somebody that he knew that had sent out a mass email. Now I didn't know this person, but Warren knew me well enough to know that I like LPs, so he forwarded it to me, and it was this dude, older gentleman who was a musician down in, I don't even know where he probably was, forgot where he was. It was about a 3-hour drive away from New York, so it wasn't in Baltimore. But he said, "Yeah, I'm getting rid of my record collection, and I have," he said, like 2,000 records that I'm going to give away.
Giveaway.
I'm just giving them away. I just want them to go to a good house. So if you know anybody, if you want it or anything, just contact me. And so Warren forwarded it to me, and I think I'm like in London somewhere, and I was like, I don't even know this dude. I'm like, I will take those. And he got back. I was the first person. And so me and my man, Brandon Sanders, is a drummer out here in New York. You know, he's in the LPs too. So I said, okay, the only way that I could, get the ride down there is because he's got. So I said, all right, we're gonna go down there and we'll split these records. You know? So that's what happened. So I got a good, most of them were good. Some of them were like, okay, I don't really need this, but there was some real gems in there, and so I benefited from that. Yeah,
that's great. That's great. Well, man, we could keep talking about LPs all day, man. But I want our audience to have a understanding about who you've played with. I know you've been hailed by Downbeat and written up in so many magazines and stuff for your performances and your compositions and your recordings. So you've made a name for yourself out there playing with a number of folks. Besides you being a leader, because we're going to get to that, just share with us some of the amazing folks that you've performed with.
I've had the good fortune and pleasure to play with all my heroes. From back when I moved to New York, I felt like I had like the drummer gigs, which was great because drums and trumpet is a very special connection, and so I started playing with Louis Hayes. Amongst them, there was Al Harewood. And then in Cliff Barbaro, and then in younger generations, there was of course Ralph Peterson. There was Louis Nash. There was yourself. So I'd gotten those together. Then a little bit later on, there were people like Cedar Walton, Ronnie Matthews, and it's just Frank Foster. I was in his big band. I remember meeting Frank. A great trumpet player named Derek Gardner was the one that hooked me up with Frank Foster, and he said, "Come down to Sweet Basil's." Not even Sweet Rhythm, Sweet Basil's.
Right. That was really back in the day.
Yeah. He said, "Come and sit in with Frank Foster." So I went down there, and this was Frank. Frank was still playing, and he was still standing because you remember he had his a leg amputated, I think. But back then he was still playing those sets, and I got a chance to sit in the last set and then join. And he invited me to join the Loud Minority Big Band, and I recorded with that. And then there was the Mingus Band, of course, and then there was and then meeting people in there. I got a chance to play with John Hicks and Vincent Herring, and meeting Earl Gardner, great lead trumpet player. He hooked me up with the Village Vanguard Orchestra. So I got a chance to do all those, and there's many more. I'm just split, going off the top of my head right now.
But as far as making your rounds in New York, I mean, you did it the right way, because you made your rounds and got to perform with some of the greats. I mean, I don't know if you did this, but when I came to town, I got to New York in 1990, and I was advised, like, man, think about who your heroes are, make a list, and when you see them in town, go check them out. So I made a list of 100 musicians that my heroes over the maybe like my first 5-6 years in New York, and I basically got to play with about 85 of them, and those I didn't play with was because they weren't around anymore. you know. But I encourage, you know, a lot of guys say, man, how do you get on the scene? I said, man, make you a list, bro, and just go. Cats will come to town. I remember AT was playing. He had just moved back from France. He was playing at Fat Tuesday. I just went and helped him set up his drums, man. Introduced
Mhm.
myself, and you know, I did the same thing with Ralph, you know, Tane, all those cats. And you know, you gotta work your way, and then you know, you did it the right way. That's what I'm saying. Is like a lot of these young cats be like, "Here's my card. Call me when you need a trumpet player." You know,
Right, right. It don't work like that.
it don't work like that. It don't work like that, man. You know, you gotta go out there and you know, do the grunt work, man. And you get lucky, and people will start recommending you, and that's how it happens. And that's one of the things I'm so proud of with you, man. It's like, you know, from the time you came to town, man, people always had great things to say. One of the things I really, really respect about you is your dedication to the tradition, because you decided to pursue the traditional aspect of the music. You know, I don't call you the jazz police. I don't do that. You know, but what I love is that you know the history. You know the history. You listen to the recordings. You know who's on the recordings. You know when they were made. You know, to some extent the studios, the engineers, but you know the history. So when you're talking to people, like I've seen you and heard you talk to students, and he's like, "Hey, listen to this record. It was made this time, and this is what's on it, and this is the information you need to get." A lot of cats can't do that, you know, and that talks about your commitment to the music.
Well, you know, I think it's important, and it's funny that you mentioned that right now, because I was thinking about that very thing um, this afternoon, just in terms
Mm,
of I was having a conversation, you know, because somebody was asking me about my kids and if they're musical, and you know, my son, who's the eldest of them all. I've got three kids. My
mm,
son Milo plays the trumpet, and now he's picking up the electric bass and everything. And then his sister Charli is playing the flute, and my youngest Amma is playing is plays a little piano, but really wants to sing. And
right.
I was describing the approach that um, I have with them, which is really hands off, because as you know, and I marvel at how you are with your son, and how a lot of jazz parents are with their kids that are really advanced and getting advanced in it, because I the thing is, and they don't live with me full time. Um,
Mm,
I I just know that the minute that I started to, when they first started, like my son, for instance, when he first started getting the trumpet, I was like, yeah, and this is that. And as soon as I did that, he was like,
yeah.
so I'm like, okay, so that approach doesn't
Ah,
really work. I don't want to
yeah.
slow him. So I learned from him that, you know, it was just like, you know, if you keep doing it until you want to do it, I'm not
Right.
gonna really get on it. But at the same time, um, I am very intense.
Mm,
And that's because I've learned a lot about the music, and I have this attitude of, like, if you're going to learn it, be right with the shit.
right.
Excuse
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
French.
Yeah.
You
You know,
got to be,
same thing, man.
you
Same
know,
thing. Yeah. You,
it's
you
it's
got to.
it's you have to be like, okay, like, you know, like I listen to, you know, some younger players that are out here, or that are, you know, burgeoning on their careers, and I realize that today is not the same as when you and I came up. And even though me and you, in different generations, age wise, we're still
Mm,
in the same generation that is that that
right.
traditional generation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think about it, because when I see younger generations now, the focus is not where it was when we were coming up,
Right.
and the forebearers are not here for them.
That's yeah, and
Like,
that's yeah. Yeah.
and
The
so
apprenticeship. the apprenticeship is kind of, yeah.
Exactly.
That was a word that the musicians were using. I'm sorry for cutting you out, but that was the word that the musicians was using when I came to town. It was like, man, you got to be part of apprenticeship,
Exactly.
and you know, yeah,
And so, when these cats come up, it's like I understand. There's two kind of lanes, because if you want to go ahead and learn and really pursue this path that you're doing, and this commitment to original music, I'm there for you. Yeah,
right,
go ahead and do this, and try to play something that's not derivative of something like that. I can get it. I get it. There's also a percentage of cats that are coming up that want to learn standards and whatnot, and that's when I kind of get I kind of get labeled the asshole or intense, because really, or as like cats like to say these days, the gatekeeper. Because if you are going to learn, and if you have this true love of wanting to learn some standards, and you're just messing around and you're not learning them in the correct way,
right,
I've got something to say about it. And
right,
that's kind of where I get,
yeah.
this,
But
this
that's what I'm saying is like you've done it the right way. You play with the right cast, and they've taught you. They've passed that information on. Again, that apprenticeship, like AT sat me down with that. A lot of great cats like the Michael Carvins, and these cats out here. Even Elvin Jones, man. I had an encounter with Elvin Jones. I'm not gonna get into it right now, but it was one of those things that it was looking so wrong, and it turned out to be so right. And I got off the drums, and he hugged me and kissed me, and so it Cass was like, damn, D, wow, Elvin likes you, it's
yeah,
because stuff was being done the right way, but it kind of lead us into the next thing I want to say. Like, if you talk about doing it the right way, if you want to sit at the table,
yeah. I mean,
if you want to sit at the table, you got to know what you're talking about.
yeah. Now I just feel like, I mean, if I think about cats that are trying to be out here, and I'm like, man, learn the melodies to these songs. You know what I mean? I feel like there is such a plain and this acceptance of mediocrity,
Right. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's like that becomes like the status. Now everybody's like, oh yeah, well, we're gonna do it like this, because that's it. And it's just like, listen, man, you have to be thorough in your own search for what's going on if you really are about this.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to also be comfortable in understanding that even our heroes were doing some wrong shit. I started, I half jokingly started this thing on Instagram, every once in a while, where I go on and be like, okay, this is wrong. Like I did something like a couple months ago where I was talking about the song All of You, and how everybody plays it the way that Miles plays it, and Miles basically played it wrong. And we're talking about Miles, so it's like, oh my God, you can't say that about Miles, but okay. Yes, I'm not saying that I'm as great as Miles, but I am saying that melody is in fact wrong the way he's playing. And you have to be comfortable in your search of saying, okay, yeah, he did play this wrong, because this is what the melody is right now, and this is how I'm going to play it. And then you start to listen to everybody else that was playing it around the same time that he recorded it, and they were playing it the right way.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's got to be that kind of search, but people are not invested, because they're just trying to get things out of the way so that they can get to their own shit.
Right. And the saying that it's always good enough for jazz. I've heard that so many times that I'll be like, man, we're gonna keep rehearsing this until we get it right. So yeah. But man, thank you for sharing that, man. And I really I feel your passion, man, and I love it, man. And that's why who you are, and that's why you're here talking about what you're talking about. But you shared some of your music with us, and I mentioned, I kind of slipped out a little bit and shared the title to the first track we want to play. But I've always been a big fan of your music. I remember when our good friend Dwayne Burner was alive, Dwayne and I used to jump on the phone at night and talk music for hours. And when he was playing with you, your projects would come out. He's like, yo, man, check this out. Check out what Pelt just put out, and we would sit up and talk about your music for hours, bro. I don't think you even knew that, man. But you shared some music with us, and I want our listeners to start hearing some of the things you're talking about, the uniqueness and the sound that you have with your project. So the first song you have is it's entitled "A Seat at the Table." Let's play it, and then you can tell us about it and who's on it. Okay, let's check out Jeremy Pelt, "A Seat at the Table."
I don't think I wear a label. I'm not an activist as such, but I am a proud black woman in an industry where black women have had to struggle for a seat at the table,
That was a seat at the table. That's a moving piece, man. That's a moving piece. I know there's a story behind it.
Well, so I came up with these books called Griot, and Griot is a West African. It comes from the West African tradition of traveling storytellers whose job it is to pass down the tradition. And the influence of the books came from Art Taylor's Notes and Tones.
Okay.
And Notes and Tones for your viewers is a book that was written by a great legendary jazz drummer named Art Taylor, and not so much written as these were interviews, musician to musician interviews that he recorded and transcribed. And they included a lot of his contemporaries, and his contemporaries in that case were people like Miles Davis and Dexter Gordon and a lot of those cats, those caliber of cats.
Right.
And so I decided to keep the tradition going, and I did it, but with not only my contemporaries, but also my elders. And it was also along the same subject matters, because a lot of AT's subject matters and on those books really centered around the socio-political aspects of Blackness and being Black and playing this music. And so when I started and embarked upon doing that, it was my intention to really capture the interviews of what I would call the soldiers of the music that didn't really get as much press as I feel like they should have. So this is even before I started incorporating my own generation. I was going after, like, specifically going after people like Paul West and Warren Smith and those and that cats that were around at the same time in parallel with all the people that we all talk about. And Hope was one person that I had met when I first came to New York. And you know, the thing that I loved about doing these interviews was that the fact that they all kind of had this preconceived notion that I was going to ask them about the people that they played with. You know, Bertha Hope was pretty much expecting me to sit over here and ask her about her at one point, her husband, Elmo Hope, right? But no, this isn't really about Elmo at all. This is about you.
Right.
And so that was so. And what I did, so I've got 4 volumes of the book now, and there's going to be more that can come out. But for the first volume, what I did was I wrote music to some of the sound bites from those interviews, and I incorporated that into a CD that came out in tandem with the book, which is what you just played right now, Griot. So the book is called Griot, Examining the Lives of Jazz's Great Storytellers. The CD is called Griot, This Is Important, because it is. Even if I don't get a Grammy, even if nothing else, I don't care about that. This is important. And,
it is important.
And so I wrote this music using, I was a film scoring major in college, and so their stories greatly, the sound bites greatly affected how I was hearing music. And what you heard at the end of that piece, which was written in influence of her interview, was her answer to one of the questions that I was talking about, that I asked. And so that's when she said, I'm just, a Black woman, playing this music that is trying to get a seat at the table.
Right. Beautiful. And she's the hero. She's the legend. I've had the pleasure of playing with her many times, man. And she's a wealth of knowledge. So you've started off the book with someone that's carrying the torch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. Kudos for doing that, man. It's great. I had the pleasure of knowing AT very, very well when he moved back to the States. We lived a block away from each other, and I used to go by his house, man. And he had those original interviews on reel to reels. And every once in a while, you'd be like, "Hey, man, check this out." He would just run it, because when he did it in France, he would be cooking lunch for the cats and stuff, and it was just sit down talking. So and he's like, "Check out the book." I'm reading the stuff in the book, and then there's like another half an hour section of the tape that was edited out and stuff. So it was really great to hear the original of some of that, man. So yeah, so that's what I mentioned. This was my summer reading, as I was traveling, and I was just imagining the whole interview, and I'm reading this, man. So continued success on that, bro. I love it, man. I love it. You're inspiring a lot of folks out there, not only as a performer, educator, composer, but you're also a historian documenting the history, which is important. And like you said, this is important. So great, man.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. We're gonna continue with some more of the great music, and this one is entitled "Amma Is Here."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Alma is here. So who's Alma and who's on the recording?
Amma is my youngest child and my second daughter. She'll be 8 in a few months. And,
Nice.
you know, I think I mentioned that all my children are musical, and she was taking piano lessons, and I wanted to write something that I thought that she might be able to play. And so the you know, the melody was just really just you know, and so I've made it as simple as possible. And yeah, I you know, I just love the song so much, and we love playing it. This is from my recording, my latest recording that came out earlier this year, entitled "Tomorrow's Another Day," and it's my young band of Jalen Baker on the vibraphone, Alex Wentz on the guitar, Leighton Harrell on the bass, and Alan Mednard on the drums. And nice. We got that together, and we made this record, and it came out in March of this year.
Okay. Very smooth, man. And our listener even said, love the smooth horn and the awesome arrangement. It's soothing, you know, it's just soothing, you know. So
yeah, well, you know, that's what I'm trying to go for. You know, I'm just trying to make things, you know, that people gravitate towards, you know, after, you know, more than one listening. They go back, let me put this back on, you know.
Check it out, yeah. And it works, because I'm sitting there, you know, I got that hook at the end. I'm like, okay, you got me. It works.
yeah.
So bring a smile to Alma's face. That's
so the funny thing is, you know, I think the youngest child is always the most judgmental and the hardest to please, right? And and so I was like, Alma, you know, I wrote this song for you. I want to see if you like it or not, you know. And we had just recorded it, and I sent it to her, and she gave me the thumbs up when she heard it. And you know, that just meant the world to me. And so now every place we go, all over Europe and every place, I say, all right, we're gonna play this song. And you know, sometimes, you know, some of these places live stream, and so I'll send the link to Alma so she can hear us. And then she'll call me like after the gig, like, Daddy, I just listened to it, you know. So it's great.
Watch out, you got to write a song for all your kids.
No, they all have songs. They all have songs.
Okay, yeah. All right. That's good. Beautiful. Well, man, you're inspiring our audience, and I know they're enjoying your music. So we're gonna move right along. And the third song that you share with us is entitled "Be the Light." Let's check it out. light. Be the light. Yeah, man. You got some fans, Pelt. You got some folks who really digging your music. They like say,
That's very
you're a bad dude. Play that thing, bro.
well,
Yeah.
thanks. You know, that was a song that was actually inspired by somebody that you and I both play with, Mulgrew Miller.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he wrote a song that I think he originally wrote for Art Blakey called Second
Okay.
Thoughts. You remember Second Thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that melody was in my head, and so I was like, okay, you know, I'm always chasing other melodies. You know, maybe not always, but a lot of the time when I'm writing, I'm always chasing, you know, like, you know, something that I'm hearing that other people wrote, and I was like, okay,
Right.
you know, I could put a variation on that.
Right. Yeah, that's inspiration comes from different places and
Yeah.
yeah, man. And I know you got a lot of melodies going around in your head all the time. So yeah.
It's swirling.
Yeah, well, keep it coming, man. Keep it coming. It's great music and it's such a beautiful vibe and the stuff that you're bringing out there. So just keep doing what you're doing, man. But we have time for one more, and I'm gonna squeeze this one in, and then we're gonna talk about it briefly. But you know, we are enjoying your music and we're enjoying the time here with you. So we're gonna wrap things up with this last song, and we'll come back and you share that with us, and then some last thoughts for our audience. So this song is entitled Earl J. Yeah, man. I don't know if you see that comment there. It just sounds like island jazz, man. He
Okay,
got some other stuff in there. I think a lot of the polyrhythms and counter melodies, um, it's
that's Alex
great.
Wentz
Somebody's
on guitar.
asking who's on guitar.
That's from the same record as Amma is here. So that's Alex Wentz on guitar, playing his
Alex
ass.
Wentz from a listening
Yeah.
audience. Yeah, yeah, man. Great sounds, bro. That's the newest CD that just came out. Continue success on all of your musical endeavors, on your teaching endeavors, and your
Thank you.
performances, on your great book, all the great things that you're doing. So continue success on that, man. I know we got to sign off, but how can our audience follow you? And where can they hear you?
Well, Meta or Facebook has decided to suspend my account, so I don't know what the hell that's about. But you could, and it's not. I'm not posting nudes or anything like that. They just decided whatever. But you can follow me on Instagram. That's the easiest way. At Jeremy Pelt the Griot, Griot, and I'll be there. And yeah. You could go to my website and jeremypelt.net, and that'll connect you through all that. I'm also on X or Twitter, JP the Griot, but I'm usually more active on Instagram. And if you want to check out the book, you could just go to my website or Jeremy Pelt the Griot and click on the link in the bio, and it'll take you straight there.
Great. So it's a lot of places that Jeremy can be found for our audience to check him out. So please follow him and like him and support him with all the great things that he's doing, man. So Brother Pelt, again, continued success to you, man. All the great things you're doing. It's such a pleasure having you on the show, and an honor, and just catching up with you, man. So you be safe, and look forward to hanging some more soon.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, man. We had a great time with Jeremy Pelt. Until next week, we're going to have just as much fun with another great, amazing musician, another friend of mine, someone that I've toured with for many years with a whole bunch of folks, and the great Gerald Cannon. We look forward to having you join us again as we bring Gerald Cannon to the sounds of the diaspora. See you next week. You guys take care. All the best. Good night.
JBH Boutique Care offers you a unique exclusive membership in our nationwide concierge medical services network. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Judine Bontemps-Hill. I'm double board certified in family and obesity medicine. We pair exclusive personalized care with accessibility and convenience. A better way for you to receive immediate quality medical care. Whether at our main Orlando, Florida office, traveling across the U.S. or visiting the States, we bring you the best medical care without waiting for an appointment. Become a member today by calling 407-234-5282 or visit us online at jdhmed1.com. JBH Boutique Care is proud to sponsor Sounds of the Diaspora, music and conversations with artists, and host Dion Parson every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Source TV Radio Network, WTSN, Washington, D.C.
What does it mean to get